What we're going to do is create a breakthrough aha moment or a breakthrough sensation that will allow you to take the distraction, the thing that's causing you the most amount of lack of focus or scattered focus in your business, the thing that is sabotaging you from success on a daily basis, and completely eradicate it simply with a mindset shift. So I'm going to teach a little bit more on it before we get into the actual exercise. While I'm doing that, you'll need a fresh sheet of paper and something to write on. The sheet of paper is going to be critical for you. I will teach on something while you're pulling out that sheet of paper. What I want to do is isolate the difference between this daily distraction, this daily scattered focus, this daily frustration that occurs as a roadblock to your success. I want to separate it from two other things. I want to separate it from not knowing what to do. And I want to separate it from not having a blueprint of what your day or your month is supposed to look like. So if we could look at a success formula, success is complex. We use things like 7-step success formulas to help us remain organized in our mind. Because especially in Western culture, we tend to be linear and logical when we think of things. And so if I give you a list to think of, it helps you organize your mind. The problem is if you live by that list, you get locked into a box. You develop a pattern of living by that list. Your life becomes uncreative. You're not able to get out of the box, and generally you're not able to accomplish big things. And so I'm just giving you 3 slices of success here. It's not everything. Success is complex. I want you to think about total success in your business as having 3 components. One of those components is knowing where you're going, the blueprint or the roadmap to where you're going. So it's the blueprint or the roadmap to where you're going says a year from now. I'm going to have 2 coaching programs at a high price and a low price. I'm going to have 3 core products, and I'm going to have 5,000 subscribers. That's where you're going. That's kind of like going from Los Angeles to Miami. You get in the car and you're going to drive there. It's a 5-day drive. You're going to stay in 4 hotels along the way, and you're going to eat 3 times a day. So you're going to eat 15 times on the way there. You're going to select where each one of these locations is going to be. And every day you're going to have to continue moving in an eastward direction. So if you wake up in the morning and you've forgotten where you're going, well, you may end up in North Dakota, or you may end up in Mexico. And then that'll derail you. You won't get to Miami in 5 days. Instead, it'll say 7 days or 10 days, or if you end up in Montana and then decide to hang out on a cattle ranch for a few months. Same thing if you head down to Mexico and you say, wow, it's so nice here and it's so sunny every day, and we're just going to lay on the beach for 3 months. It's going to be a 3-month derailment to get to Miami. Well, building your business is a lot like that. You have to know where you're going. You've got to have that blueprint that says, I know where I'm going. And then proceeding, once you have that blueprint, then if we're thinking about it from a linear perspective, if we're thinking about it from a math perspective, you've got to know what to do. So if we look at the map idea, again, you've got to know how to drive the car. You've got to know how to stop at a gas station, put gas in the car. You've got to, be able to pull off and go to a fast food restaurant when you're in a hurry, when you need some time to rest and let your eyes refocus. Maybe you should go to a restaurant where you're going to sit for an hour. You have to know that if you're sleepy, you're probably better off drinking coffee than having some sweets. If you're jittery from drinking coffee, then you know that maybe you need to sit down and have a solid meal, maybe a salad and a small steak or a chicken. So you have to know the steps for getting from Los Angeles to Miami. You've got to be able to know what those steps are for driving and checking into a hotel and stopping for gas before you run out of gas, stopping for food before you get so hungry you can't see the road, and so on. So far, we've got 2 components of success in your business. One of them is the blueprint, knowing where you're going. The second step is knowing how to do each one of the steps, how to get gas, how to stop at a fast food restaurant, how to, stop and get a room reservation so that you can get a good night's sleep, where to park, how to drive, how fast to drive. The knowing how to do each one of the parts, if you look at it from your business perspective. How do you create a coaching program? How do you create a product? How do you write an email? How do you write an article? How do you create daily content? How do you do each one of those components? Okay, now, the third component, if you have your blueprint and you know what to do, you know how to do it, you know how to create a coaching program, and if you've been studying for me for more than a few days, you ought to know how to create a product. If you've been studying with me for more than 24 minutes, you ought to know how, if you've been studying with me for more than 2 weeks, you should know how to write an email. All of these components, we're now going to assume you've got your blueprint. You know what to do. The next step is you've got to keep away from distraction. Let's take a look at driving from Los Angeles to Miami again and think about the various distractions that could happen. If you've done much of the long-distance road trips, you'll know that every so many miles there's a billboard that says there's a museum up ahead. So if you're driving in each state, it seems like there's a kind of a different type of thing. If you're driving through the South, you might have reenactments from the Civil War. If you're driving through a part of the country that has dinosaur bones, lots of dinosaur bones, there might be a dinosaur museum. If you're driving through a part of the country where they have, like the world's largest alligator, then there's going to be an alligator museum. And if you go where there's the world's smallest rattlesnake, there's going to be the rattlesnake museum. And once the rattlesnake dies, it's still going to be the rattlesnake museum. It's going to be there. And what happens is, as you're driving, there's all these billboards on the right side of the road and on the left side of the road. And the bottom line is, each one of those billboards is placed there by the museum or the company or the tourist attraction or the hotel that has, 50 ice creams. As you're driving across the country, there's all these distractions. The distractions are placed there purposely to distract you, to get you off of the road, so you'll come in and you'll pay $15 admission to the museum, so that you'll pay your $50 admission for the ice cream cone, and then you'll buy overpriced gas to go along with the ice cream cone since you're parked here anyway. And so if you can get this picture of all of these distractions now as you're driving, if you stop at every museum on the road, then you're not going to get to your destination. In 5 days may not get there in 30 days. This may turn into, a one-year road trip. Let's stop at every museum on the way. And if that's what you have planned, you've taken a year off of work. You say, that's what we're going to do. We're just going to spend a year, and we're going to travel from Los Angeles to Miami, and we're going to visit every tourist attraction. We're going to visit every museum. We're going to stop at every gas station. We're going to stop at every ice cream joint. Then that's your plan. But that's not your plan. Your plan is to get from Los Angeles to Miami in as short a time as possible. Let's say 5 days. It's exactly the same thing. And hopefully you're beginning to draw some correlations in your business. When you're drawing your blueprint and your roadmap, and you think that a year from now you want to have 2 coaching programs, you want to have 3 products, you want to have 3,000 subscribers, you look at the fact that there's 252 working days in the year, and you think about the fact that a coaching program takes 10 or 15 hours to create, and a product takes 10 or 15 hours a piece to create times 3 products, 45 hours to create. And it may take you 10 or 15 hours to write each sales letter, so you have 4 sales letters. Then we're up to 120 hours worth of work right here. And we've got 352 working days. And if you just work in the evening for 4 hours, you have 1,000 working hours in the next year. If you just work 4 hours a day, you've got 1,000 working hours in the next year. And it's only going to take you maybe 120 hours to create 2 coaching programs, 3 products, and write 3 sales letters. It leaves you 900 hours. If we were to be really, really, really simplistic about it and say we have 900 hours left over, and all we have left in our blueprint is to get 3,000 subscribers. We just need to get about 3.5 subscribers per hour. That's it, 3.5 subscribers per hour. And that'd be a really simplistic way to look at it. And the truth be told, it's probably not going to happen just like that. You might write a guest blog post that gets you 100 subscribers, and it took you 1 hour to write it. So guest blog post gets you 100 subscribers. You got 100 subscribers out of the way right now. You only need 2 or more subscribers by the end of the year. Okay, now you may sit down and write another guest blog post and you only get 1 subscriber. It took you an hour to write that one. And so, as you can see, as you go through this, it's not going to necessarily be linear when it comes to generating those subscribers. Maybe you say, I'm going to invest 300 or 400 and I'm going to pay for a couple of emails to go out to highly targeted email lists in my niche. We're not talking about buying commercial solo ads where you just pay per click type of thing. We're talking about genuine referrals by targeted people in your niche. I'm an investor of 400 and you're going to generate 200 or 300 subscribers right there in another couple hours worth of work. And now you only have 600 subscribers left to meet your goal by the end of the year. So now when you're looking at this, you may think, well, if I've got 1,000 hours to work over the course of the next year, of course. If you're working on your business 8 hours a day, you've got 2,000 hours. If you're working on your business for, say, 2 hours a day, you've got a total of 500 hours. You may say, boy, I should maybe have a daily content strategy. I should create content for 30 minutes every single day with 30 minutes every single day. Out of 250 days is, well, about 125 hours of content creation. I have, say, 1,000 hours to work. 125 hours is not a lot of time, really. I mean, it's a very small portion of the time that you work, and yet, at the end of the year, when you're completed with this, my goodness, what could you do with 125 hours of content? 125 hours of content. You could have a 12-hour coaching program. That's 12 hours down. You could have 3 6-hour training programs. That's 18 hours down. So that's 30 hours of training. Maybe you have 10 1-hour standalone programs. That's 40 hours. That leaves you 85 hours of content. What could you do with 85 hours of content? Well, maybe you could take 25 of those 80 hours of content, take 25 of them, divide them up into 6-minute videos, and have 256-minute videos that you could post all over the web for content generation. So now you're down to, what, about 55 hours of content. So let's say we take that content and we have it transcribed. So we have 55 hours of transcribed content. Now, if you talk kind of slow, you're probably going to talk at about 100 words a minute. So 60 minutes in the hour times 100 words a minute, you get 6,000 words an hour. So if you take 6,000 words an hour and multiply it by, say, 50 hours of content, if my math is correct, you're going to end up with 300,000 words of content. Now, you could position that into 6 50,000-word books. You could position that into 301,000-word blog posts. You could position that into 600 and 500-word articles, or any combination thereof. So you could say, okay, well, I'm going to take 100,000 words and make that into 250,000-word books. I'm going to take 100,000 words and I'm going to make that into, let's say, 51,000-word blog posts. And then I'm going to take the last 100,000 words and I'm going to turn that into 100 500-word posts. And of course, this is layered on in addition to, I think we said we'd have 300 YouTube-style videos that we could put up. Then we would also have 12-hour coaching program. We'd also have 3 6-hour training programs. And we would also have, I don't remember the number, 10 or 15 1-hour standalone training programs. And all of that for a mere 30 minutes a day of content creation. So the thing is, when we look at this big picture and we look at the total number of hours that are going to be available to us over the next year, we go, wow, we can really do a lot with the time. So there's another way to look at this, and that's to look at the last year. Say you work 4 hours a day for 252 days of the year. So you've worked 1,000 hours on your business in the last year. And the question is, do you have 1,000 hours worth of work to show for it? 1,000 hours worth of work. Well, that's probably a couple of coaching programs. 3 or 4 products, 2 books, 300 YouTubes, 150-word or, 50,000-word blog posts, 100, 500-word articles. And that's just a half an hour a day, okay, plus the sales letter generation, then, plus however many hours you're going to put into subscriber generation. So when you look back at the last year of your life, how much of this 1,000 hours worth, or if you only work 2 hours a day, this 500 hours worth of actual work was completed. Think about that for a moment. Write that down on a sheet of paper. Out of the last year, how many hours do you think you worked? If you worked 2 hours a day, that's about 500 hours a year. And if you worked 4 hours a day, that's about 1,000 hours in the last year. And if you worked 8 hours a day, that's 2,000 hours over the course of the year. So you write down that number. And beneath it, write down the solid things that you've accomplished in the last year. Write down how many products you've created. Write down how many sales letters you've written, how many emails you've written, and how much product you've created, or how much content you've created. So if you write all that down beneath it. And the next step in this exercise is to ask yourself if there's a gap between the time you put in and the results you got out. You can write down yes or no on your sheet there. You see, the question is, have you gotten out what you've put in terms of time? If the answer is no, the question is, where did all that time go? Where did all that time go? And was it worth whatever you spent that time on? And so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to break down some of the things that are common that we tend to spend our time on. And then we can ask ourselves now if that's your problem. If it's not your problem, you can skip over it. But if this issue that I bring up is your problem, it's something that you struggle with, I just want you to ask yourself, was it worth not being able to do everything that you could have done in 1,000 hours? And so we've already kind of talked about what you could do in 1,000 hours. In fact, why don't you write that down? So now that you've written down what you accomplished in the last year, write down what you could accomplish if you were to just do the things we talked about. So, maybe write down how many coaching programs you might create. Write that down. Say 2 coaching programs, and then write down products, 3 products, 5 products, 1 product, whatever. It's your roadmaps. It can be whatever you want. It can be a product a month, whatever you want. So then write down how many hours of content. Remember, 30 minutes a day. 30 minutes a day is 125 hours a year, so be generous there. Ask yourself how many subscribers you'd like to do in the next year, you'd like to generate. How many get blog posts, how many articles, how much content? Write all those things down. There's a gap right now between what you did last year and what you're going to do this next year. I'm going to go through step by step some of the things that sabotage us from being able to get all of those things done. But before I do that, I want to submit to you. See, I may not even cover the issue that's your issue. So I'm going to cover some issues like email and frustration and habits and distractions and multitasking. I'm going to cover those things. But if the thing that's your problem is not one of those things, you've got to identify what it is. What's your time eater? You've got to identify what it is and then slay it the same way we're going to slay these particular issues. You've got to kill that issue at the bulk, and we're going to go through each one of these. You've got to determine what the thing is that's holding you back and ask yourself the following question. Is it worth this distraction? Is it worth it to have this gap between what I did and what I want to do? Because here's the thing. If you don't change your behavior, and I don't know what your behavior is, hey, I know the things that I struggle with, and I get better every year. I know what I struggle with, and most of the issues that we're going to talk about here, I've struggled with them in some way or another. And most of these issues, I've almost mastered them. There's always room for improvement. The question for you is really, the statement to you is, I'll just make this statement, and you're going to agree with it or not. The statement is, if you don't make a change, if you continue allowing these various distractions to derail you, you will have the next same results in the next 12 months that you've gotten in the last 12 months. It doesn't matter how hard you work. It doesn't matter who you study, from the best in the business, the worst in the business, the middle in the business. It doesn't make any difference how many products you buy. It doesn't make any difference how many coaching programs you show up for. It doesn't make any difference how many positive affirmations you make. It doesn't make any difference how many positive thoughts that you think. If you don't change the behavior that is robbing you of success, then you will continue to have the same results as you've gotten in the last year. You can read any book you want on positive affirmations. You can create a list of positive affirmations and stand in front of the mirror and read them to yourself each morning. And for a small percentage of the population, that kind of thing works. Why does it work? It doesn't work because the affirmations do anything special. It works because you have programmed your mind in the morning to recognize that you're not going to allow these distractions to happen, and it may happen subconsciously or subliminally. And so you think it's the affirmations, the truth of the matter. The actual impactor is getting rid of these distractions. Now again, we're making the assumption you know what your blueprint is, and you know how to do each one of the steps. And so obviously what this means is, if you don't know your blueprint, you got to figure it out. Because no matter how much knowledge you get, if you don't have your blueprint, well, you're not going to be able to figure it out. It also means that you have to learn how to do the steps. Winging it is not going to work. You have to learn the steps. And what I recommend is learn how to do the steps from whoever is good at doing those steps in the marketplace. You don't want to go out there and try to learn the steps from somebody who has only been in business for a short time and has, created a flimsy little ebook or a couple of little videos to show you how it could theoretically be done. They were really good at it, okay? What you want to do is you want to learn how to do it from somebody who's done it exactly the way that you want to do it. And then once those two pieces are in place, all you've got to do is walk it out. Let's talk about these distractions and what it's going to take to get rid of them. We've talked about this idea that if you don't get rid of them, you're going to have the same results next year as you had last year. Dreaming isn't going to change it. Vision casting is not going to change it. Positive affirmations is not going to change it. The only thing that's going to change it is action. Let's look at these one by one. Let's take a look at email as a distraction. Look at email as a distraction. So you go through the course of the day and you open up your email box, and once you open up your email box, you are stuck in your email box for the rest of the day. It's kind of like once you open up a bag of potato chips. You will remain in the bag of potato chips until all potato chips have been consumed. Maybe you don't like potato chips. Do you like popcorn? Ever gone to a movie theater and sat down and got one of those really big popcorns and you said, I'm only going to eat a quarter of it, and at the end of the movie, it's all gone? Now, you're responsible, though, if you didn't throw it all over the movie theater. The popcorn is gone. Where did it go? You consumed it. Email's exactly the same way. Once you open up that email box, you continue and you continue and you continue through your email box until there's nothing left in the email box. The problem is the email box is worse than a bag of popcorn. The email box is worse than a bag of potato chips. And the reason for this is because your email box is constantly refilling. Your email box is constantly refilling. I want you to imagine that you had a bag of potato chips and you said, I'm just going to eat the bag. And then once it's done, I'm done. You eat the whole bag and you blink and you look back in and there's 4 more potato chips in there. So you have to eat the potato chips. And then you blink again and there's 4 more potato chips. And you blink again. Several hours later, you're still eating potato chips because the potato chips are growing out of the bottom of the bag. That's how email works. Emails just kind of grow and grow and grow and grow. So the question is this, is the time that you're spending on email, is it worth this negative result that's occurring in your life, which means you're not able to accomplish whatever it is you've set out to accomplish? Is it worth it? You have to make that decision. I don't know. I mean, if the pleasure of reading email for 2 to 3 hours a day is more pleasurable than having 3,000 subscribers, 3 products, a number of people in a coaching program, then by all means read email. It has to be your decision. I can't make it for you. Your wife can't make it for you. Your husband can't make it for you. You have to make that decision. And then the question is the email worth it? Is allowing the email to distract you worth it? Now, you may be saying it's just not that easy. Well, that's why we're having this whole discussion, because I could have said what I just said at the very beginning of this discussion. But here's the thing. When you fully recognize the pain that's going to occur if you go another year without accomplishing your achievements that you want to achieve, when you recognize that pain, you can feel that pain, then you're able to compare that with the pleasure you get from email, with the calming feeling you get from email, by knowing your email box is empty right now. And then 5 minutes later, there's 1 email in there, so it's no longer empty. So you have to go in and you have to satisfy the desire to make sure that the email box is empty. The question is the desire, is the good feeling, the positive, comforting feeling you're getting from email worth the pain that you're going to have by not having your business in place? And so now that we've set up email as kind of the standard here, we use that as the example. We can move more quickly through some of the other issues. Think about what your issue is. What is your issue? Is it 45 minutes of time that you spend surfing the internet each day? Is that what it is? The question is it worth it? Is it worth it? You have to make that decision. Is it worth it? Would that 45 minutes be better spent creating 45 minutes worth of content online? Would that 45 minutes be better spent writing 2 or 3 new emails? Would that 45 minutes be better spent coaching somebody? Here's the thing. You only get each hour once in your lifetime. You will never get the chance to use the next 60 minutes of your life ever again. Ever. No matter how long you live, no matter how much sleep you give up, no matter how well you live for the rest of your life, you will never recover the next 60 minutes of your life. Ever. You'll never recover 60 minutes of your life tomorrow. In fact, you'll never recover the next 5 minutes of your life. And when you wake up tomorrow morning and you get to work and it's 10 o'clock and you're getting ready to go into that email hole, you're getting ready to surf the internet, you're getting ready to multitask, you're getting ready to allow something to distract you. If you just think the following thought, I will never have the next 5 minutes of my life again. Once it goes, it's gone. Am I willing to spend the next 5 minutes of my life on email, for example? Am I willing to spend the next 10 minutes of my life, which I'll never ever recover, by reading emails? Or whatever your issue is, you have to make that decision. It's your decision. You have to own that decision. Now, you could take this overboard. You could say, well, I guess I got to work 168 hours of the week. No, absolutely not. Because the next question to ask is, when the workday is done and you have another hour at the end of the day, that you have a choice between spending it with your grandchildren or spending it working. You have to remember this. You'll never have that hour again. You will never, ever be able to duplicate that hour with your grandchildren. You'll never be able to duplicate that hour again with your wife or your husband. You'll never, ever be able to duplicate that hour again. And if you spend that hour working at night, instead of spending time with your husband, your wife, your grandchildren, or your parents, because you didn't work during the day, because you spent your time on email, or multitasking, or getting frustrated, or getting angry, or surfing, or anything else that distracts you, you will never, ever get that time again. Ever. And so it's kind of like a chain. You make the decision to spend an hour on email. You say, well, I don't make that decision. Now you will. You see, before we had this discussion, you fall into that trap and you don't know you're there. Now you'll know you're there. Have you ever had an experience where a certain kind of food really tastes good to you? And then somebody told you how it's made? They kind of told you about the factory where it was made. They told you about the federal food standards for that kind of food. Or they told you about the toxin that's in that particular food. And you may continue to eat that food, but every time you eat that food, you're thinking about the toxin that's in that food. Ever had something like that occur? It's the same thing here. When you try to open up your email box tomorrow, you will not be able to have the excuse that it just opened, and you just found yourself there 2 hours later. Because if you're actively thinking about this right now, you will never again open your email box and spend 5 minutes in it without asking yourself, is the next 5 minutes in email worth sabotaging the work that I could get out of the next hour? And it's a chain, because if you sabotage an hour's worth of work for an hour's worth of email, and then at the end of the day, instead of quitting work at 5 o'clock because you're not finished with everything because of the hour that you robbed from yourself, you're now going to rob an hour from your family. That email is not just going to rob from your business, that email is robbing from your family. It's robbing from yourself. It's robbing your life. It's robbing you blind. The difference is you didn't know it before. Now you know it. Okay, so how do you solve the problem? Now that you've internalized it, now that you've felt it, now you can feel it. You can feel the pain that's involved. You ask yourself, was it worth 300 hours on email last year to not have the success and to sabotage myself from success for the next year? You've made the decision now. It's not worth it. Now, because you've made that decision, you can make an email plan. You can make a decision that each day you're going to spend 20 minutes in email and no more. How do you do that? There's a few different ways to do it. You have to figure out which one works for you. I can't tell you which one is going to work best for you. I find that if I tell myself I can have 20 minutes first thing in the morning on email, I have a very difficult time quitting after 20 minutes. And if I do quit, I'm constantly drawn back. It's kind of like if there's a bag of potato chips on the kitchen counter at 10 o'clock in the afternoon or 10 o'clock in the morning, and I know it's there and it's not open, I can go all day. And that potato chip bag does not bother me. But if at 10 o'clock I open it up and I say I'm just going to have 5 potato chips, and I'm going to have the discipline to only have 5 potato chips, and I close the bag up. What am I thinking about for the next 2 hours? How I would just love another potato chip. I fight it for 2 hours. What happens? I'm going to open the bag up and have a few more. And then the next time it's going to take me less time than 2 hours. It takes me an hour to the next time it's half an hour. After a while, the bag's gone. Email's the same thing for me. And so what I find is to make that 20 minutes happen at the end of the day. Make it happen at the end of the day. You're going to finish working at 5. You're solidly committed to that. So open your email box at 4:40. Okay, now, I'm almost scared to give you this next piece because it's very difficult to manage unless you've used what I just gave you for like a month and just totally weaned yourself off of the addiction to having that email box open all the time. But I'm going to give it to you because I want this to be complete. After a month of only responding to email from 20 minutes at the end of the day or 30 minutes at the end of the day, you can then have a second session, say around noon, say from noon, 12:30, 12:20, if indeed you're in a business that really requires you to respond in the middle of the day. Most businesses, you don't need to respond in the middle of the day. Most businesses, you don't. Most businesses, your prospects, your clients can wait until the end of the day to get your response. Most businesses. So only if you're in a business that really needs that extra email, then should you open up email in the middle of the day. Now, if you try to open up email in the middle of the day and you discover that from 8 to noon, you're distraction-free. But then once you open that email box, it's like opening up the potato chip box or bag, and the rest of the day you're constantly in your email. Then you just have to make the decision to only check email from 4:30 until 5 o'clock. So that's email. Is it easy? No, it's not easy. It will take discipline. The truth of the matter is, most things that are worth accomplishing in life are not easy. They take discipline. Most things in life worth doing are not easy. They take discipline, and this will take discipline. And folks, that's why I gave you all the emotional hot buttons, the emotional hot stuff at the beginning. Because without that pain of recognizing what's going to happen in the next year, if you don't take action without recognizing that pain, without feeling that pain, without getting sick and tired of being sick and tired, then this willpower, this discipline will probably never happen because it doesn't happen for most people. It mostly happened for me. I still have weak moments where I spend too much time in email. It happens. Okay, so now that we've set it up for email, what about all the other things? The same thing could happen for web surfing. If you know you have a time period where you spend 45 minutes a day web surfing and it's wasted time, you just have to ask yourself, am I willing to make the exchange? Is this my preferred form of entertainment? Is this my preferred form of entertainment? This is really what I want to do with the middle of my day. My guess is when you recognize that 45 minutes a day times 250 days is sabotaging like 100, whatever that is. 3/4 of 250 is what? 183, 187, something like that. 187 hours of time. What could you do in 187 hours of time? You could create 187 hours worth of product. What would you do if you, right now in your business, if in the last year you had already created 187 hours of quality content, how would your business be different today? How would your family be different today? How would your checkbook, your bank account be different today? You see, it's really easy to say it's just 45 minutes. It's really easy to say that. I know. I've been there. It's really easy just to say it's 45 minutes. It's not 45 minutes. It's 187 hours of content. It's the difference between success and failure. That's what it is. It's the difference between success and failure. Same thing with multitasking. If you personally know that you cannot do two things at one time as well as you can do one thing at one time, then multitasking is a problem for you. If multitasking is a problem for you, you've got to attack it the same way we've just talked about. You've got to attack it the same way we attack email. You've got to attack it the same way that we attack web surfing for 45 minutes. You can say, I'm not doing it anymore. My least productive times of the day following email is multitasking. If I try to do two things at one time. And there's a fallacy out there because we have this idea that we can chew gum and we can walk and we can talk and we can do all of that at the same time. You say, well, that's multitasking. Yeah, but it's using habitual parts of your mind that don't really require much mind power. I mean, for most of you, walking, chewing gum, and talking do not take a lot of mind power. But when you're online and you're furiously writing an article, if you go up that every 5 minutes to read and respond to an email, it will take you 10 times longer to write that article than if you wrote the article in 10 minutes and then went and responded to your emails. Or you wrote an hour's worth of articles and then you opened up the email box for 10 minutes. Now remember, we just talked about email. We talked about batching. So I'm not making the suggestion that you work for an hour and check email for 10 minutes. And the other thing is that if we compare the activity of writing articles and doing email together, compare that to just writing articles and then just checking our email. We find that we're able to get more done in less time. You can even try that tomorrow. Tomorrow, you can make a list of all the things you're going to do and just multitask as normal. And then at the end of the day, write down everything you've accomplished. The following day, have the same exact list, but only allow yourself to work on one thing at a time. Almost guaranteed you'll find you get more done in less time. That doesn't make sense. It really doesn't. It does not make logical sense. Because when you're in the middle of multitasking, it feels like you're doing more. You're waiting for a web page to refresh for 5 seconds. Let's use that 5 seconds wisely. The problem is, after about 30 minutes, 45 minutes, I don't know what the exact scientific number is, but somewhere, at some point in your brain begins to slow down. If you're trying to do multiple intellectual things at the same time, and let's face it, most of the operative things that you do in your business, whether you're creating a product, you're outlining a product, you're creating a coaching program, you're creating strategy, you're writing emails, those all take the operative part of your brain. That's not like chewing gum and recording something at the same time, although I don't recommend doing those things together. So let's talk about some of the other distractions that happen. So these are the things that are easy to control ahead of time. So email is easy to control ahead of time. 45 minutes of surfing time is easy to control ahead of time. Multitasking is easy to control ahead of time as long as you know what we've just talked about. Okay, so what about things that derail you? There are external influences that derail you. So you're working along and your computer crashes. You get frustrated, you get mad, your anger hormones rise, and you're no longer in that clear, focused state of flow that allows you to be really creative. So what do you do? What do you do when somebody in the household makes you angry, if you buy into the idea that other people can make you angry? So what do you do when somebody else does something that you interpret in such a way that you make yourself angry? What do you do when an outside interruption comes into your day and breaks it all up? What do you do? Now you have two choices. One is you can look at it from the perspective of my day is gone. Quit for the day. You know that you're not going to be able to be creative or focused or anything like that for the rest of the day. Shut the computer, be done, take a break, sleep, rest, whatever. But the truth of the matter is maybe the reason you got frustrated, maybe the reason that you got angry was because you're tired anyway. And if you're tired, not working a full performance, but if you close your computer and you're done for the day, when you wake up tomorrow, you wake up earlier, and those kinds of things don't happen as much. And that's one way to handle it. Another way to handle it is just continue doing what you've been doing, which is just kind of push your way through it. Push, 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 push. That'd be another way to handle it. That doesn't work, though. We know that. Why? It's physiological. I believe it's physiological. Because inside of you, there are hormones that make you feel calm. There are hormones that make you feel excited. And there are hormones that make you feel really stressed out. And it's really difficult to operate on all three of those at one time. Generally in life, you're either calm, excited, or angry, or some other one. You know, you could be sad or whatever. It's really hard to hold multiple emotions at one time. If you can recognize that, if you can recognize the frustration itself is not causing you to not be creative. The anger itself is not causing you to not be able to be focused and creative. It's the mental and the physical, the physiological and the hormonal state in which your body is right now. That is in an angry or a frustrated state which stifles creativity. Because when are we most creative? So without getting too scientific here, we're probably most creative when we're in a calm state, maybe a slightly excited state. That's probably when we're most creative. We're probably not most creative when we're just raring to go, loaded up on caffeine. We've got all this energy. No, we're operating in a place of doing what we weren't creative about. We have to ask ourselves if we're frustrated and we're angry now and we're being dominated by a negative mindset, or we are being dominated by negative hormones in our body. It is going to be therefore impossible for us to simultaneously be creative or for us to be truly productive and excited. Now, hopefully you're kind of seeing where I'm going here, and that is to say that in order for you to get into the creative mindset or to be able to be totally focused again, you've got to get off of whatever the frustration, the anger, or the interruption was, mentally and physiologically. And we'll talk just for a second about how you can do that. Everybody can do it differently. You have to figure out what works for you. But let's talk again about what happens if you don't deal with the physiological impact of those negative hormones in your body right now. If you don't do that, and you try really hard to be creative or to be focused the rest of the day, you are trying to do all of those things while your body is full of those negative hormones. It would be sort of like saying, I'm going to eat salad right now, but I'm also going to eat potato chips. You can't really do them both at the same time. Now you can multitask and have one potato chip and one piece of salad, one potato chip, one piece of salad. You can't do them at the same time. It's not possible. But it's exactly the same thing here. You're not going to be able to be angry and be creative and be focused at the same time. You can't do that. And so in order for you to be able to get back to that creative stage, you've got to finish the anger, whatever it takes, whether it's finishing the discussion, whether it's going for a walk, whether it's eating, whether it's turning the computer off, pretending the day is over, laying down and taking a 20-minute nap and pretending the day is starting again. You've got to have a mental reset. You've got to get those negative hormones out of the body. And then once they're out, you can start all over again. You say, okay, well, what do I need to be? I need to be creative. Okay, great. I need to be calm. What do I need to do to be calm? Maybe I need to have a glass of green tea. Maybe I need to walk for 20 minutes. Maybe I just need to relax for a little while, and now I'm able to be creative. Or maybe I want to be focused. So what am I going to do? So if you're into caffeine, maybe you say, okay, I'm going to eat an apple, and I'm going to drink a coffee, and I'm going to walk for 20 minutes. And when I come back, I'm going to be totally focused until we get into a new state of mind. Notice we're no longer having to fight the anger. We're no longer having to fight the negative emotion because it's all gone. Okay, now I want to say this. What I just shared with you works for me. My guess is that if you'll work on it, what I just shared with you will work for you as well. Probably won't happen right away. It's something that takes time to work on. I've been working on these things I've just shared with you. I've been working on them for years, folks, and I get better every year. I get better every year. Hopefully next year I'll be even better, and I can see a direct correlation between my ability to handle these distractions and frustrations and my success level. And there's other things that are correlated, obviously. As my knowledge grows, I become more successful. As I become more efficient with my time, I become more successful. As I become more experienced, I become more successful. So they're all kind of growing together, and it's pretty important to me that they all grow together. And so I work on all of these things a lot of the time. I work on these things. I probably work on these issues more than I work on my business. And you may go, well, if you worked on your business more, you'd be even more successful. I don't think so. I would even think that if I spent more time working on these issues, my business would probably grow even faster. And so I just submit to you that if you'll take the time to work on these issues, work on distraction, whether it's email, whether it's surfing, work on frustration, work on managing your personal energy cycles, and you'll be able to overcome these types of things. And when you are able to overcome these things, and I'm not even talking about completely, I mean, just think about your life. If right now you're working 4 hours a day, but 3 of those hours are being consumed by distraction, if you just get that down to 2 hours a day, you're going to double your productivity because you're going to go from working 1 hour seriously to working 2 hours a day. Seriously. You're going to go from working 1 hour a day to working 2 hours a day. And then maybe next year you get rid of one more hour. You're going to triple your productivity. And you're going to go, wow, what if I could get rid of that last hour? And then you get rid of it all. Some of you get rid of it all today. Some of you it's going to take a month. Some of you it may take a year. The thing is, the more that you get rid of these things and you know what to do and you put your blueprint into action, you'll be absolutely amazed at how much progress that you're going to be able to make. Because in addition to knowing what to do, in addition to working on your blueprint, you're able to control all of these distractions that are sidetracking you and that are sabotaging your success.